This is an interesting topic for me, one of my favorites, as you are aware. About 3 or 4 months ago, my niece and nephew contacted me about wanting to start a business. And so they called me and said, we want to start this business. What should we do? Well, what was the first thing I told them?
Make a business plan.
Make a business plan, right? So they didn't have one, so I sent them one. I have a template for one, so I sent them one. And they sent me one back. And I read it. And we set up a meeting to talk about it. And they said, well, what do you think? I said, well, it's not nearly done enough. Haven't thought through your product, haven't thought through who your market's going to be, haven't thought through your pricing, haven't thought why you're better than anybody else, haven't thought through how much it's going to cost you, all those types of things. So I said, in essence, you haven't done much for the business plan. And they said, well, the reason I didn't is because I did it for me. You know, someone said if you're just doing it for yourself, it doesn't have to be as well done as if you do it for a lender or if you're trying to get outside money or whatever. And I said, why would you think that way? Because you're putting your money in, you're putting your time in. It's just as risky to you, if not more, because you're making all the investment than bringing in an outside investor. So I said, go back and get this thing as detailed as you possibly can and work through all of the questions I gave you. Because if you can't work through them, you ought not to put your time or your money in the business. I haven't seen the second business plan. You have to target who you think you're going to sell your services to. So let's go ahead and say you want to become a real estate agent, right? To become a real estate agent, go ahead and take the very best coursework from the CE Shop Inc. to go ahead and get your license. Once you get your license, you are starting your own business. So you have to figure out who are you going to go ahead and sell your services to. So you have to figure out your target market. Once you figure out your target market, meaning could be your neighborhood, could be larger than that, it could be commercial, you might target millennials, you might target the elderly. Whatever it is, you've got to figure out who your target market is and who you're going to sell your services to. Once you decide to go ahead and do that, you've got to figure out your lead list. You've got to figure out how you're going to go market to them. Are you going to use SEO, SEM? Are you going to do pay-per-click? Are you going to use Zillow? Who are you going to use, right, to go ahead and get your message out there? Are you going to do direct mail? What are you going to do to get your message out there, right? So once you determine your target market, you've got to figure out who you're going to go ahead and sell to. Once you start to get a customer, they call you and say, hey, Ken, I want you to go ahead and be my real estate agent. What's your presentation? What's the product you're selling to them? Because they're going to give you their money for you to do something. Why should they give you that money to you versus anybody else? So you've got to figure out what your product is and what's going to make you different than somebody else and have that presentation ready. Why are you better, right? The other thing that you need to figure out then is, because it is a regulatory environment as well, how you're going to get your documents, how you're going to follow the forms. You got to make sure you get all that done so that as you walk through the process, you can help your customer. And then the biggest thing about any business when you start is, if you remember back when, I always say when you start a business, it takes you twice as long to do something and costs you more money. What most people don't forget is you might not get your first sale for the first 3 months, first 4 months, first 5 months. In every business that you start, it takes a long time to get that first sale. And then it takes a little bit less time to get the next one, a little bit less time to get the next one. But you got to have enough money to make sure that you can compensate and pay yourself from the time you start that business until the time you can finally make enough money to go ahead and pay for yourself.